much. All right, let's talk about Bernie Sanders. He was unapologetic last night when he said he would indeed raise taxes. His argument, a tax hike would pay for the cost of his single-payer Medicare for All proposal. With me now to talk about all of this is Charles Chamberlain. He's the executive director for Democracy for America. His organization is backing Sanders. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Sanders wants to revamp Obamacare to a single-payer system. Is Senator Sanders forgetting how much Republicans despise Obamacare? A reminder.
Well, I think that when
let's listen to the reminder first before you get into the question. I'm sorry. Here's Paul Ryan.
We are confronting the president with the hard, honest truth. Obamacare does not work. It has to go. Higher premiums, fewer choices, restricted access. These are not signs of success. These are signs of failure. And the American people deserve better.
So Republicans who control both houses of Congress have voted to repeal or roll back parts of Obamacare 60 times. So how exactly will Sanders manage a single-payer plan?
Well, I think one of the key things that made it so that Obamacare could be vulnerable to attacks is the idea that it has to be framed. People don't know what it is. What's exciting about Bernie Sanders' proposal is that it's based off of Medicare. Medicare is something that everybody knows. In fact, Medicare works. It's a hugely successful program. And the many millions of seniors that are on it know how successful that program is and how good it is for them. And what Bernie Sanders' plan is to make it so that Medicare is available to all. That's going to be hard to demonize. That's going to be a hard train to stop once it goes down the tracks. That's why I think those of us that are supporting Sanders
governors
want this revolution.
across the country aren't buying into the Medicare idea, even now under the current Obamacare program.
Right, so the expansion of Medicaid and Medicare through Obamacare was done in a way where governors are allowed to reject it. The key to Sanders' proposal is that if governors reject it, then it just gets built by the federal government instead. Much like the exchanges in Obamacare, but unlike Medicaid, it can't be rejected. It has to actually happen. So in the Medicare plan, Medicare for All plan like Bernie's proposing, it would make sure that everybody has coverage, whether you have a Republican governor or not.
Senator Sanders also wants to raise taxes on the wealthy. He made that very clear. Again, both houses of Congress are controlled by Republicans. They're really not into tax hikes on the wealthy. So how can he get that through Congress?
It's a great question, and I think it's really valid to ask how any of the candidates are going to get their stuff through Congress. I mean, whether it's Clinton or it's Sanders, both of them are going to have to work with a divided Congress that is going to be hell-bent on beating them and not letting them achieve any real goals. And I think the reason why we can expect to see Bernie Sanders have a lot more success than I think other candidates that are talking about it is because of this political revolution he's building. Millions of Americans nationwide that are backing him up and working hard to make it happen. I mean, the reality is that even if you look at something like Obamacare, it passed because millions of Americans, huge amount of support from many of the very popular provisions in the bill, made it possible for them to actually get it through against Republican opposition then. We can do it again now.
I just remember how bitter the fight was. It's very clear in my mind still. Let's talk about voters supporting Sanders, because we know he has many voters in Iowa and New Hampshire supporting him, but not so much in the Midwest. In fact, Bernie Sanders plans to go to Minnesota. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune has a poll that shows Hillary Clinton beating Bernie Sanders by a whopping 34 points. So how can Bernie Sanders overcome that in the middle part of this country?
Well, when this campaign started in Iowa, Bernie Sanders was beaten by Hillary Clinton by like 50 points. He's been an asterisk in the polls when he got started. And what happens is you continue throughout the campaign is that people get more and more familiar with who Bernie Sanders is and what it is his positions are. And as that happens, you see him jump in the polls and rise to the point where he's ahead in New Hampshire. He's within striking distance in Iowa. I think we're going to see that happen across the country as people get to know him throughout the campaign.
All right, I have to leave it there. Charles Chamberlain, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.